Welcome to the Jersey Score. Now, in preparation for the college football season, we're going to do a series of videos going through by conference to rank the teams by their football uniforms. And today we're going to start with the Big 12. But before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you and it really helps me a lot. I do have a couple ground rules as I get started. I'm really going to do my best to stick to the primary home and away uniforms and not include alternates. Now that's hard as many teams have so many different color combinations as part of their standard look now. Also, I am rating the conferences as they're currently constructed today, not how they are going to be with all the realignment. And in addition to looking at the uniforms, the color, the helmet and logo, I'm also going to take the nickname into consideration, as for some of these teams it's very tight and I got to get nitpicky. So without any further ado, let's get to it. So at number 10, we have Texas Tech. Now, for my rule to not include the alternates, Texas Tech definitely takes a hit because their standard issue uniforms are, for me, they're fine, but they look like they probably belong more in Conference USA. However, they would have really benefited from using their alternate uniforms. Look at these things. These are just so clean, so classic looking. Even the logo on it doesn't have the beveled look on the tees. They're just flat, and the black with the red and white highlights there is just really good. If they made these their standard home and away, Texas Tech would easily be in top 3 of the conference. At number 9, we have Oklahoma State. And now the difference for me between team 9 and 4 on this list is very slim. So I did have to get nitpicky. So even though I generally like the direction that Oklahoma State went with this version of their uniforms, for me, it's just a little too messy. There's a lot going on, and really orange for me never really works as a primary color on football uniforms. I love it as a secondary color. If you look at these black uniforms, these are the cleanest out of all of them for me, and I just really like it. The bandana, I think, is a fun concept. On the black ones, it works best. It probably kind of blends in a little bit more flawlessly, a little more smoothly, that it doesn't stand out so much. I love the helmet, and I love putting Pistol Pete on there. I don't really like the standard Oklahoma State uniform, the OSU, but the Pistol Pete, I love him, so I think that's a great touch. And another knock on these is I've never been a fan of having the writing on the legs, so I had to knock them for a few things. I think it's actually a pretty cool look, but for me, the conference is tight, and so they got knocked down to 9. At number 8, we have TCU. Now, TCU has had some hideous looks throughout the years, but this is not one of them. I really like what they have going on here. The only thing I can't really get past are the diamonds around the collar, which is to represent their mascot, the horned frog, but for me, it just is too big and too distracting, and it looks kind of clownish. Another knock against it is I've never loved their logo, and maybe if it were just the TCU and no horned frog on there. But other than that, these are great. I love the color scheme. I'm a sucker for purple on uniforms when it's done well, and this shade of purple with the black is just really good. So I love these. There's just a couple elements that knock it down. At number 7, we have Kansas. And this really surprised me because before starting this video, I fully expected having them in last place. I hadn't watched them play in a while and didn't realize that they had updated their uniforms. And what they ended up with is a really clean look. There's no major knocks on it. One thing I don't love are the numbers. They look really good on the basketball team uniform, and I love having the parallel branding. But for me, these just don't translate as well onto a football uniform. Again, there's no major knocks, and maybe I'm just being biased against Kansas because I didn't expect them to be good. Really, I can't believe I have them as high as I do. But I look at these, and there's no striking flaws. At number 6, we have Iowa State. Maybe there's nothing on there that really stands out, but it's a clean look, great color scheme. The only problem with that is it's USC's color scheme, and so it's always going to look like you're doing an imitation of USC. But I think this is a clean, solid look. I'm not a big fan of the Iowa State logo. That's one knock against it, but other than that, not ultra memorable, but just very solid, and that's probably why they've ended up in the middle of the pack. At number 5, we have West Virginia. Now, for once, the Mountaineers did not try to do too much with their uniform, and they ended up with a really clean look. Now, kind of like Iowa State before them, there's maybe not something ultra memorable about it, but I just think it's really clean and solid, and they have a lot of different color combinations, which I prefer. I'm not as big a fan of the color rush look. I like it when they have some variety in there, and they certainly have the options to do that. And something that sets it apart from Iowa State is I really like their logo. So again, great color scheme, very clean, good look for West Virginia. At number 4, we have Baylor. Now, this look is very reminiscent of from what we've seen from Iowa State and West Virginia, in the sense that they're just very clean and basic, and they have a lot of color combinations that they can throw at you. What I think sets Baylor apart is their color scheme. I really like the colors for Iowa State and West Virginia, but they're both very similar to two other blue blood programs in USC and Michigan, respectfully, whereas Baylor owns this color scheme. It's not a common one, and I think it looks really good. So for me, Baylor edges out those other two. At number 3, we have Kansas State. Now, I told you earlier in the video I'm a sucker for purple. The other thing I'm a sucker for are very clean, classic-looking uniforms, and Kansas State has both those things. On top of it, it is a unique color scheme. I don't know if I've seen another pairing purple with that silver look, and I think it's very striking. It's a cool look. Kansas State's logo is pretty simple. It's not my favorite, but I think it's simple and it looks good. I'm not a fan of the Wildcat nickname. I think it's one of the most basic, kind of silly nicknames out there, but I think they are enough ahead of the teams right behind them that they've earned the spot at 3. At number 2, we have Oklahoma. Now, I've just always been such a big fan of this look. It is so clean and so classic. There's really no knock against it. My only complaint would be there are so many teams that are similar shades of red. They are technically cream and not white, and that is a little bit of a distinguisher. And so that's really the only knock and what set it behind our number 1 team. So that means at number 1, we have, that's right, the Texas Longhorns. Now, I would appreciate it if you didn't tell any Texas fans they got put number 1 on any list, even a small YouTube channel like this, because they do not need to get their heads any bigger. However, even though I've always rooted against Texas, I've also always really liked these uniforms. They are so clean and so classic, and I know I said orange does not work as a primary color in uniforms for me. This is one of the exceptions to the rule. The burnt orange, I think, is a really cool color, and it's one that only Texas has. And so it's really unique to them. And on top of it all, the Longhorn nickname just suits Texas so well, and the logo to go with it just really is the cherry on top of the whole uniform. Now, because I'm such a homer, I'm going to tell you where I think BYU would fall if they were in the conference. Now, they will be in the Big 12 next year, but if today they were in the conference, I think that they would come in after Oklahoma, before Kansas State. I also really like BYU's look, but I think Texas and Oklahoma just are so classic and iconic that they got to go ahead of my Cougs. But other than that, I still think they beat out the rest of the conference. And so with Texas and Oklahoma set to leave in a couple years after BYU joins, I don't think it's hard to believe that they would be at the front of the Big 12, but we'll look at that next year. Anyway, let me know how you would rank the teams in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.